My Murrumbidgee is a great waterway. It's a big water. To me, it gives me spirit. It gives me a sense of where I belong and where my home is.
My connection to country is through the Ngunnawal people, and being out here on country, it's fantastic. It reminds me of my grandmother and my connection to this river, and it also brings back memories of when I was a kid. The headwaters of the Upper Murrumbidgee River start in Kosciuszko National Park above Tantangra Dam. The river flows southeast towards Cooma before turning north, flowing past Bread Bay and onto Canberra. After leaving the ACT, it continues its journey north before entering Burrinjuck Dam near Yass.
I'm Matt Crozier, I'm the General Manager of Cavan Station. We're located on the Murrumbidgee River just south of Yass. It's a beautiful grazing property that sits in the Murrumbidgee River Valley, and I've sort of been lucky enough to look after these group of farms for about 11 years. We really interact, heavily with the river because the aggregation of properties is split in half by the Murrumbidgee River. The total area we manage is about 25,000 acres, so we actually run it as two separate divisions. We've only got one bridge, the Tamus Bridge, where we can cross the river. So we're actually really interacting with the river very frequently. We pump out of the river for stock and domestic purposes. The Burrinjuck Dam wall is about 15 kilometres further downstream. What you're seeing behind me is the upper reaches of it. So this is where the water's banking back up through the river valley. So the water level fluctuates quite dramatically as Burrinjuck, fills and empties. We do have some farming country that quite often goes underwater when the dam fills up. Once the dam drops below about 75% capacity, we go back to having just the river channel. At the moment, what you're seeing is effectively the dam. And that's what makes the difficulty in managing the interaction between our farming land and the river difficult is because that water level's rising and falling all the time. I sort of have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with the river. It is magnificent to live on such a magnificent body of water for the recreational aspects of fishing and boating and water skiing, but the challenges of managing that interface between the farming country and the water level at times does your head in.
Okay. I'm Fiona Dyer and I'm a Professor of Water Science at the University of Canberra and the representative for the environment on the Snowy Advisory Committee. So at the moment the river's well up, so it's quite high water level, which you'd expect given that it's been a particularly wet summer. It's flowing quite fast, so I'm not letting the dogs go out too far, and I won't go out too far either. It's reasonably turbid, and that's what you expect during high flow times. It's more turbid than it really should be, and that's a function of the way in which the catchment is managed. So we're getting soil and sediment washing off hillsides and washing off riverbanks and into the river systems. Locally around here, one of the big issues the river faces is the urban development around Canberra. So Canberra has pushed to the west in its urban development over the last probably 5 years or so, and that pushes it closer to the Murrumbidgee River. And with urban development comes disturbance of our land surfaces and the erosion of material from the land surface, and it ends up in the river. The other thing that happens with urban development is that you increase the amount of nutrients that end up in the river systems, and so we need to be very careful when it comes to those sorts of developments and how we manage them to ensure that we continue to protect the Murrumbidgee River so that we can continue to enjoy it and our kids and our grandchildren can continue to enjoy it.
Maxie, can you go around the other side, please? I'm Rowena. I live just in Bredbo, about 500 metres away from Murrumbidgee. Extremely lucky to have this in our backyard.
My name is Max and I'm 11 years old and I live in Bredbo near the Murrumbidgee.
We come down probably every couple of weeks for a kayak, me and my son. We picnic down here. We also go for walks every morning. Best time of the day, come down here when it's nice and peaceful, and we love it. So Maxie, you can see it's flowing pretty hard out in the middle.
Yeah.
We're going to need to stick to this side and you need to follow me. Probably 10 or 15 years ago we couldn't have walked down here, we couldn't have come down, driven down where we did because it was just overgrown with blackberries. So the local land care group is very active and it has eliminated those blackberries. It's planted natives. We've got a wonderful group. It's almost park-like coming down now.
Good morning everyone, welcome to our platypus survey on the Murrumbidgee River. This survey program is a long-standing program of Upper Murrumbidgee Water Watch to try to estimate platypus populations within the Upper Murrumbidgee catchment. By surveying platypus we get a real insight into the health of our rivers as well as into an iconic animal that has recently been listed as near threatened.
I've got a perfect record anyway. Over 3 years, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So, but every time I come, someone else gets one. So,
last week when we occupied this stretch of river, I think the next side up they saw 2 platypuses and one ricali, and I was one side down and I saw 1 platypus and potentially a ricali.
Well, it's an unusual river because it flows, its course is kind of south and then north and then west to join the Murray. So it's an interesting river. It's got varied sections of it and it takes the snow melt. It's just part of Australia. It's beautiful.
In the Upper Bidgee we've got some of Australia's most iconic native fish species. We've got Macquarie perch, Murray cod, trout cod, and these species are now listed as threatened. There's a range of partners working to try and sustain and recover these species, but ultimately the success of this will rely on our ability to reduce threats and to improve the health of our river. I love this part of the Murrumbidgee River because it's just a fantastic environment, and to me it kind of sums up what the mountains are about. It's just mountains, water, and it's just a wonderful place to be.
When you're fly fishing or when you're fishing, just doesn't matter what sort of fishing, If you get lost in the moment, that's what fishing's for, just getting lost in the moment. I mean, while I've been doing this, I have been thinking about another thing in the world. Col Sinclair, semi-retired guide. Moved to Adamitaby about 30 years ago from Noosa Heads, so a lot of people thought that was a bit weird, but if you love the mountains and you love fishing for trout, this is the perfect place to be in mainland Australia. The Bidgees are, it's a pretty unique place, and above, the high country Bidgee above Tantanga is like truly magnificent. Oh, there's one, see that? So we only tapped at that fly. Just go, oh, they're just not biting today.
One of the interesting things about the Upper Murrumbidgee is it has Tantanga Dam on it. Around 95% of the flow that comes into Tantanga Dam is passed across the divide through the Snowy Mountains scheme to generate hydroelectricity and comes back into the Murrumbidgee much further downstream from here, so it comes back in through the Tumut system. So the flows in the river are modified, so they're not what they would have been naturally. And then we put on top of that the changes in climate that we're experiencing, and it means that the frequencies that you see, these types of higher flow events, and the frequencies when you saw those really low flows that we saw in 2019 change.
All Aboriginal people have a philosophy from snow melt to sea. And we're not seeing a lot of that happening over the years. A lot of this water is being diverted into Tantanga Dam. It's affecting the fabric of how the Snowy Mountains operates and the functions that have been a part of the Snowy Mountains for thousands and thousands of years. A lot of the environmental flows that are released from Tantanga Dam, those environmental flows are not even really hitting the ACT. We're not really seeing any evidence of them. Just from my community, the Ngunnawal community, we're hurting. We're hurting socially, culturally, spiritually. Those flows need to be increased, and I'm a supporter of that.
No longer is Australia just a place where different nations, First Nations people live. It's also people who've come from other countries. Even though they are new to this country, they still have a love for this land and the water, so we all need to work together to look after it. I'm Sue Bolger. I'm a Wiradjuri Waggaloo woman, and I like to think that the Murrumbidgee is my river. We're at Long Plain, where the Murrumbidgee you can hear in the background, and it's just lovely to be here to see where the Murrumbidgee starts. Boys, stop. What do you think of this river?
It's really good.
Really? Is it good?
Yes, and I need a yabby pumper.
Yes.
I want a yabby net, and I put in there and try and find a yabby.
And what do we do with the yabby?
Eat it.
Okay, let's do that. Cook it up? Yeah, I think we'll have to cook it up. As the next generation of people who are connected to the Murrumbidgee River, that we must protect it as much as we can, look after it, and make sure that it's always going to be flowing for generations to come. We have enjoyed lots of areas where creeks run into rivers, so that traditional area that was so special to our ancestors, we still feel that spirituality today when we visit those places. I really don't think we're doing enough together, collaboratively, to help our river systems. We need to be more connected and working together so that all of our river systems are working properly and doing what they're meant to be doing.
The river is the soul of the high country in Australia, driest continent in the world. If we have no water, we have nothing.
On a work, business and professional level, it provides a set of challenges, but I don't think I'd have it any other way.
It's an iconic river of Australia and it's very close, it's in our backyard. So we should be enjoying it.
If we look after the land and the water, then the land and water will look after us.